And so what I want to talk about today is some of the skills that we can use for herding sheep or any other kind of animal you want to think about. The main thing you need to understand when you're working with sheep is they need to see you. That's really, really important. They need to see you. And if they can't see you, they're going to try to get to a spot where they can see you. Now, the problem with sheep is they have wool. Cattle don't have wool, and so they can see behind them easier. But when you get in behind a sheep, they've got to turn their head to see you, and that changes their direction a lot of times. So our position is probably more important on sheep than any other animals we work with. The problem with most humans want to go around behind animals and drive them. And we have to get behind animals and drive them, but if we drive them in a way that keeps them looking at us and turning their heads towards us, we're always going to be fixing the direction of our sheep. So if you think about a team, I was just out back here and there's a whole bunch of carts and stuff for driving teams behind. So if you've ever had a team, driven a team, or you've seen a team of horses driven, there's one thing that every harness usually has on it. Anybody got an idea what that is? Blinders. Most bridles have blinders on them when you're driving a team. And the reason they have blinders is because it keeps the horses going straight. When you're driving a team, your horses need to pull straight and even. If they don't pull straight and even, if you got a team, then you don't have a team, you have a single horse pulling at different times. But if they pull straight and even, you've got a team. And the reason you have blinders is, if you didn't have blinders, they'd always be turning and looking and they wouldn't be going straight. They'd be doing this all the time. So I kind of look at sheep, if you think about that, we can't put blinders on the sheep, even though they kind of have them with their wool. We've got to position ourselves where because they're not tied together, where we keep these sheep where they're going and being consistent. When we're driving sheep, think if your sheep, one of the things that when you handle lots of young, like these ewe lambs, they'll get to circling on you. They just get to whirling or circling if you got a lot of numbers, 100 or more. They get to circling. And what you want to do, you don't want what's happening when sheep start circling, the right side, if they're circling this way, that means the right side is going faster than the left side. So speed the left side up. If you want to make your sheep turn, if you're driving sheep out there and you want them to turn, speed the left side of your sheep up, step in and speed this side up and slow this side down over here, and that makes a nice turn. If you want them to go straight, go back and forth like a border collie dog would and keep them going straight. Keep both sides even. So driving sheep gets to be real easy if you watch your sheep, and they'll tell you what to do. All you're doing is speeding up one side or slowing it down to make a turn or keep them going straight. It's that simple. But watch what your position is doing. Now, people drive sheep crazy when they get right in behind them and drive them. Because they go here and the sheep are going here and then they all start that way. Then they run over here and then the sheep all go that way. So you've got to watch your lead and keep moving back and forth and keep your lead pointed and keep the other sheep pushing them. Everybody all right with that? Now, I know a lot of you are going to call sheep to you with grain or feed. That's okay. That's no problem. That's a drawing pressure. The problem is when you get them up inside the pen, sometimes you can't draw them anymore. They won't come up the chute or onto the truck. And so if you get in that situation, those sheep have to drive. And I'd just as soon teach my sheep to drive out here so that when I get them in the corrals, I can be in their pressure zone or flight zone and drive them where they don't go crazy and get their heart rate up and start not thinking but panicking in those chutes. When sheep start panicking, what do? They lay down or they go hide in the bunch. Cattle, when they panic, they'll kick you, run over you, or jump the fence. But sheep, they just go hide they huddle up in the bunch because they have no protection except get in the bunch. So when you get sheep stressed, that's when you start grabbing sheep and trying to drag them up through. So that's really important to remember. What if there's feet on the ground, or what if there's a sack hanging on the fence or something that was deterring them? That means you've got to put more pressure on. See, if there's grass here, I've got to become more pressure than the grass. An animal can only think of one thing at a time. If he's thinking about me, he's going to walk right past the grass. But this is the trouble. I don't call this low-stress livestock handling. I call it effective stockmanship. Because if you're doing low stress livestock handling, you're pretty likely those sheep are going to stop there and graze because you're being real low stress. But to me, that's not effective. You got to be putting enough pressure on because you're going to end up putting more stress on those animals if they stop to graze to try to get them to move again. So if I can keep them going and I see that coming and I move into that pressure and they never even see the grass, but it's, if it's clover that deep, it's pretty hard to do that. And so you've got to sometimes, I came in here this morning and watched some kids, a bunch of kids riding. And they had tarps and they had stuff hanging they were dragging sleds and all kinds of stuff. And those horses were really taking it well. But they trained those, they didn't just start that this morning. They trained those horses to respond and go over bridges, and they were going over jumps and over tarps and things like that. I see horse people do that all the time, but we never teach our sheep to drive before we try to drive them. And I think that's the big thing. And this is the pleasure I get out of having sheep or cattle or pigs or whatever, is the pleasure I get is teaching those animals to drive, teaching them to work for me. So those are challenges. And if they stop, then it means, to me, that means I didn't put my pressure on in the right place, or I was late with my pressure. Does that help? But always remember, an animal can only think of one thing at a time. Now, if you don't have grass, if you don't have distractions, as Temple Grandin would call it, that makes it so much easier. But like some people say, well, my sheep load good in the morning, but not the afternoon because the sun is in the way. Now, you can move a jacket off the fence, or you can take your coat off chain off the fence, but it's pretty hard to move the sun. So you either got to figure out when to work your sheep, or teach them that when they take the right pressure, they don't even think about the distractions. So hopefully that's helpful.